Morning. So what happened week commencing 29th of April 2019, end of April fast upon us. So Monday I sent an email around to all staff telling them the importance of not giving us any spoilers for Game of Thrones. The final season of Game of Thrones, obviously I've invested a lot of time watching every single episode. Each episode is roughly about an hour long, so this is where it's getting down to the crunch. And because it's launched in America, it's streamed in America at maybe 2 o'clock in the morning or something along those lines. So social media and all kind of news outlets will have spoilers or things that pick up on that. So the only way to avoid it is literally to go completely radio silent, don't go on any kind of social media, and also there can't be any spoilers at work. So basically, some people, I know Rich has stayed up. I think Elliot quite often will stay up just because they want to watch it then and there and can't wait any longer. But which is totally fine if that's what they want to do. I can totally get it. Probably if my life was was different, I think I'd probably be in the same camp. Certainly if I was single, didn't have a business or a family to run or whatever, then I too would be doing the same thing. So anyway, I'm glad to say that anybody who did stay up, which I think was Elliot, was totally respectful and didn't say anything, so that was good. And I have to say, certainly the episode didn't disappoint. So Monday was also pretty much the crunch day for sending out of Costa, and that all went out. It did involve quite a fair bit of work, even on the Monday. We had to utilise the boardroom or like the meeting room or our office for packing, just because it's got a very big table, so we had 2 teams of people packing. Thankfully, like all the hard work that Rob and Elliot and I think Aidan as well had also come in at the weekend on the Saturday and the Sunday to pack up the kits, and yeah, we literally got the thing over the line. I don't think they were even close to being tight in the end. I think we had a van in around 12 o'clock and got rid of some of the stuff, and then by the time the second van came in at 4, it went out. This is the first promotion as well, where we swapped from using one carrier to another. Not so much on price, the carrier we were using has just decided that they don't want to, from a business decision, for We Deliver, our other courier business, to do couriers for them, because it's kind of like almost like subletting, if you want to say that. They want to just go directly for the end users, possibly because, I don't know, actually I have absolutely no idea. It's just what they've decided to do. It's a business decision that's out of our hands. It was really crucial for us to get it out that extra day early. So if we send it out on a Monday, it arrives, the majority of the kits arrive Tuesday, for a promotion that goes live on Thursday. So you do need to get it out on the Monday wherever possible, just so you've got that extra day for something that's not gone through or not gone through the courier system right, and it gives it that extra 24 hours to get there. So yeah, I think all pretty much good. We had maybe, I think, a couple of kits where the stuff had been delivered and signed for on the Thursday, but they couldn't find them. I don't know whether they'd been lost. There's quite a bit of developments going on in some parts of Moto where it was like a contractor had signed for the goods. So, and by that I mean as in like a building contractor. So, there's a lot of things when there's skips around, a lot of things end up in the skip that shouldn't. Let's just say that. So, yeah, I think really everybody could be very pleased with getting it over the line. One thing that certainly was there for learning, I think, more than anything else, was to ensure that for future ones that we have more of a proactive planning. So like we've worked out when the live dates of all the promotions are going to be going forward for next year. They're now in there. We've got kind of like a 3-week marker on the calendar that we have, the shared calendar, and because I look at things probably a further 2 weeks in advance of that, we're pretty much 5 weeks upstream on the live date, so that gives us plenty of time to be able to plan things better, resources and packing and materials, etc., and also to avoid people taking time off when we might be in a situation where we do need more hands on deck. But yeah, that was good. Tuesday we had Rob came down to Ashgrove House, this house, and he helped doing some more bits of the DIY that I've not really had the time to do because I've been working. So Rob did things like did the garden, mowed the lawn. There's a massive, I don't know why, in the back garden there's like, I can only describe it as a sinkhole, so it's probably about 1 metre by 1 metre there or thereabouts, and it probably maybe drops about, I don't know, probably about a foot. Yeah, it must be a good foot that it drops down. I don't know, absolutely no reason whatsoever. It's not like we've dug anything of it. So as part of the tidying of stuff, there was a couple of bags of fertiliser, and he also got some more soil off the topsoil at the back, cut down trees, and just generally made it tidier. I mean, there'd be quite a lot of people out there who would quite rightly say, well, you've sold the house now, why bother doing anything on it? And that, to be fair, is a good question, because he also fixed the oven. He's such a clever guy. He really is, and talented in terms of Rob, in terms of his DIY skills. I think basically he worked at a caravan park before as like general maintenance, so he's pretty much there's nothing that he won't have a go at fixing. A lot of the time it's usually just taking stuff apart, finding out what's wrong, repairing it and what have you. So the oven, which is over there, he took it out, took the fan out, cleaned all the dust out, put it back in, seemed to work fine. Ironically, when we turned it on that night, it actually started making more noise, but then the following day took it out again, put a little bit of grease in, and that's literally like fixed it. So now it's running quiet as a mouse in terms of the cooling fan that's on it, so that's good. But again, yeah, like, why fix all this stuff when you're leaving the house? And I don't know, it just morally feels like the right thing to do. So hopefully they won't be too upset when, well, I'm hoping in 2 months' time, I would hope that the big patch of mud, if you could call it, is now will have the grass seed will have come through. If we leave it, the way I figure it is, if we leave it too long for them, and again, bear in mind they might actually rip all the turf off and redo it, but if we leave it too long from now, then it'll be in the summer, and that makes it really hard to get seeds to grow, because the weather's just potentially too hot all the time. So if you are going to do it, doing it in spring is good, when you've got that kind of mixture of nice warm weather and you've still got a little bit of rain. So I'm looking out there and I can see that it's rained overnight, so that's good. But equally, I think it's going to be nice and dry during the day. So we also had a meeting on Tuesday with John on the We Deliver side of the business, in terms of health and safety and the things that we ship. If you're shipping stuff, well, it's a little bit like when you go on a holiday, I suppose. They're always asking you, did you pack the bag yourself? What's it got in it? And then it's just a question of, are you shipping things that are dangerous to ship? And that kind of applies to couriers as well. And we deal with businesses that do things like ship medical syringes and what have you, that are all packaged up in a correct and safe manner, but it's still, we just need to be mindful of what the stuff is. And again, it's just that overall that overall improvement in kind of doing things the right way. You know, we are luckily, not so much lucky, we've made a decision to invest in doing things the right way and giving Emily the time to learn about all the legislations that's required for when we're doing things like packing or packing in this case for the delivery business, or if we're doing installations, then you know everybody's now up to speed on how to do that, what a risk assessment is, and you were a lot more comfortable with those kind of things. We also had on Tuesday the guy came late on to actually finally fix the dishwasher. So just that convenience matter where I'm not spending that quarter of an hour, 10 minutes. It doesn't take long to actually put the dishes away, but the quality of work, it does do a better job, and it's just that extra little bit of time that it saves. So I'm glad that's all fixed. At work we started doing the backup of the server. So at the moment we actually have 2 servers. We've got one at work, and we've actually got one here at Ashgrove House that mirrors exactly everything that's on the work server. So in theory, if the server at work broke down for whatever reason, then we actually have a server here that you could take into work, and everybody would literally be up and running immediately, probably in about, probably in under half an hour, working off the same files that they had before, which is good. The only thing that it does still leave vulnerabilities for, if you have these things called ransomware attacks, which is where somebody can hack into your system or into your network and then encrypt the data, and obviously will then decrypt it, but obviously with a ransom. So we have a separate now. We're in the process, or I've been what seems to be in the process for 4 or 5 months, trying to make the decision as the right pieces of hardware and what have you to have. It's like a NAS drive. It's really clever. So basically, it's not a big box. It's maybe only about that wide, that tall, that deep, and it's got these 4 individual hard disk drives that are mounted in an enclosure. And what they do is they take all the data and then they put packets of data, of all the data, share them across the 4 drives, and it means that if any one of these drives goes down in the machine, as in breaks or ceases to operate, then you just literally take it out and you put a new one in, and all that data is then, all the data is shared across all the drives. So it means that when you put the other one back in, it can then reshare all the data across all the drives, which is really clever stuff. But the key thing is that although it takes all the data off the network, that has a complete separate control mechanism, if you want to call it, or like the software that controls it. So that means that the chances of that being, it's actually literally guaranteed for it not to be encrypted. It also keeps all files for a longer period of time. So at the moment, if you deleted a file on one server, it would delete it on the other server. Yes, there's an element of kind of like right click and retrieving old folders as a whole. So there's a little bit of that, but this has a much deeper and longer level or a deeper level of file recovery in it as well. So and the other thing as well it does is we have, just because of the nature of work that we're doing, more videos, as you probably notice, if you take, let's say, a text document, whatever, is just like a few kilobytes. You have a picture, it's maybe up to a couple of meg. But then if you have a video, then you're looking, even like a short video, like this, lasts roughly about half an hour, and that's maybe about 6 gig. So you need a heck of a lot more memory for when you're doing video work, as we do with Studio. So what we tend to do is now we have a separate disk drive at work, like a hard disk drive, and we only save the final edit on the work, on the main server, and then kind of like the working files and all the other supporting files that go to make the final edit are saved on another external disk drive. So this other NAS storage drive, what they have, that actually backs up the data from the separate hard drive that links to the studio drive. So currently at the moment, if that hard drive and the studio drive that has like all the working edits and what have you, if that goes down, there's a possibility, well, you know, the files on there would be lost and they would be irretrievable. So yeah, it's just that, it's just that having just that more layers of data protection and what have you, and encryption that just means that it just gives us more business security. So we watched, when's PC was finally replaced. We're in this situation where we're updating all the PCs. So if we buy a new PC or buy a laptop or whatever, then there's a little bit of a trickle down effect. And Wen's PC is probably the worst in the business in terms of, if you look at the processor scores, hers is about 3,000 in terms of its CPU setting, and at the moment we've got some machines that are up to, I think they're up to 18,000, the majority are about 10,000 in the speed, but yeah, it really is probably the worst. Although for some bits, if it's just doing kind of like a internet browsing or something like that, then it's possible that, you know, that it would be good enough to, you know, to do that. And if you're just sending emails and what have you, and just leaving the machine on all the time, then they work perfectly fine. So I'm hoping we can reallocate it to somebody else somewhere down the line, and it still have some use. Wednesday, Rob was back at Ashgrove House. The oven, as I mentioned before, that had started squealing again, so he took that off and put a bit of grease in, and that was fine. He trimmed a few of the trees, but we're very lucky in that we've got a mature tree line at the back of in the back garden at Ashgrove House. Just so happens that they're all in a nice straight line. Somebody took the time to plant them at a very considered spacing, so we've got mature trees that are just spaced apart at the right amount of time, but they do need trimming every 2-3 years or something like that. We haven't done it for again quite a few years. They are quite mature, so Rob just went along, lopped the low hanging branches off, and yeah, everything looks really good, you know. Really nice garden. When we sit out there in Nana's Corner and look out, it's just a tranquil place to spend time, which is good. So we, on the Wednesday, continued with the ongoing negotiations with the vendors for Witsend. So we'd gone back to them with the findings of the surveys that we had, and all the myriad of things that are going to need replacing, or that are up to what we could call the correct spec, i.e. kind of like the roof on the stables is going to need replacing because it's the concrete, made of concrete tiles, and they're too heavy for the roof. Potential kind of like some of the beams are going to need replacing, and I don't know, let's say probably somewhere in the region of about £150,000 work, I would say, is going to need it to make it back into a building that probably is what it really should be for what it is. Bottom line is they came back and said that they're completely not willing to do any discount. There's the asking price is what the asking price is, and they want the full asking price for it. So Wendy and I had some discussions as to what the next game, what the next move in this game is. We had a bit of a difference of opinion. I think one thing, Wen thinks another. So I just said, okay, play it Wen's way, and she went back with another offer, which then on the Thursday the vendors subsequently decided that they weren't happy with it. Basically, I think they came back and said they were, I don't know what was the word, I wish I could remember the exact word, but let's just say they were perplexed that we would come back and look for them to fund the repairs that were required to the outbuildings at Witsend. And in some ways, I suppose I can probably understand where they're coming from if they're looking at a house that was at one stage that some people had, or some estate agents had agreed to put on the market at 1.4 million, and then if we're paying £1 million for it, then in theory, you know, already it's been, you know, the value of the properties and what have you have been reduced to a point where it's reflected in it, and to their mind that they say that our mortgage lenders have been round there and said that it's £1 million, it's worth £1 million. Now obviously at the time the way that they're doing is they're looking at it and going, okay, where's all these buildings together, are they worth this? They don't know the actual quality of the buildings or the work that's required to fit it. But ultimately, the other thing is that the vendors themselves have then gone onwards. Certainly the lady out of the couple, and again this is one of the things that's a complication, the lady has has got a new property that she's looking to buy, and has obviously probably gone to the top end of her budget based on the money that she had off the offer that we've initially made. So she's got that figure in mind, is obviously not then willing to budge. So we came back. I then had a further counter proposal on the Thursday, which then was put back via email to the vendors to have a think on. Thursday was an interesting night. We're doing a store fit out where we're going for digital bulkheads, and our client had a supplier in place who'd been, not saying dodging, but basically hadn't been coming back really with the message that they wanted in terms of fitting the screens. So I think it was about around 3 o'clock. Elliot came through to me and said, look, we're going to need to go and get these 10 digital, 43-inch TVs, which are big, I don't know, television, I don't know, probably about that high by about, I think, and like 10 of them that we then needed to buy from a company in Birmingham, and then go and fit that same night at Wetherby Services, which is towards kind of I think it's northeast, heading up towards, it's on the A1, like top end of Yorkshire, that kind of way. Like, I don't know, not far from Wakefield or Leeds, that kind of direction. So again, that's one of the good things of having a business that does lots of things, because we're able to, Sherry was able to go down as part of the same day side of our business and go and collect the screens from Birmingham and then bring them back. Rob is able to drive the same van, the We Deliver van, as part of his overlap within the covering the bit of the deliveries. But he's also, like I say, he's then able to insure it. So there was him, and also Elliot then went, I don't know what, I think they probably got there about 9 o'clock, and it is a bit of a worry when you're doing an install, because if you're doing an install during the day, it's fine, you can always go to a B&Q or a DIY shop, and you've got options where you can buy materials and what have you. Whereas when you're going and your work starts at 10, if you then hit problems on the install and you need to buy, I don't know, materials, wood or whatever, that, you know, if you've not got them with you, that's it. You've got to work with what you've got. So I think, as with any install, they definitely had a lot of they had problems which they then overcome, and they worked all the way through the night. Thursday night, we as a family, we sat down and started rewatching Game of Thrones all the way from the start. As soon as we got to the kind of like the end of the current series of box sets that we're watching, so we could have gone for, there was discussions about maybe watching I think it's called In the Line of Fire at the moment, which is a current one that people quite, that a lot of people are watching at the minute. But we've decided to, as a family, to sit down and watch Game of Thrones all the way from the start. It is quite, I would definitely say Game of Thrones, obviously there's a heck of a lot of hours worth of watching to do, but I think on the second time round the benefit is that because you know what's going to happen in the future, there are things that are more significant, a lot more significant the second time round than they would be when you first watch them, because you understand the rest of the story. So I'm definitely enjoying the rewatching of them. Friday, post the offer that we put through on the Thursday, I got a call through from Josh in the morning saying that the vendors had kind of accepted half of the offer, but also offered more things to make it more of a deal. And it's kind of like we got to the point where this was the third time that we'd gone back to them, so that there comes a point where you can't, for me, you can't keep going back to and fro, and you do need to try and minimise that as much as possible. They made it clear where they were at, and we've got to a point where you know, we're both relatively happy with the compromises that we need to make, so that was good. Had Elliot, oh god, yeah, I forgot, yeah, Elliot and Rob actually came back. They didn't actually get back to the office till 8 o'clock in the morning, so that was them wiped out then for the rest of the day. They had a successful install, sent the pictures on to client. Ironically, they want to go back and swap what they've got, because now they've seen the 43-inch TVs along the back wall. They've now decided that they want to do 32-inch TVs. I mean, we're talking, these TVs aren't cheap. You can get tellies from, I don't know, 300 quid or something like that, and these are a lot more expensive than that, the commercial grade televisions. And yeah, so so looks like either we or somebody's going to have to go back and replace them all. I had a long chat with one of the guys in our company. Was probably feeling a little bit I don't know, like just wanted some reassurance in terms of his kind of role within the business and those kind of things. So I probably, it's one of those ones where it's a 5-minute chat that ends up being like an hour plus. Kind of, as you know, we have have one-to-ones with people where we can sit down, but that doesn't preclude the need to, as and when, have chats with people. And I think all I can just do is just be as honest as I can. So he asked me some direct questions and I answered them as, straight down the line, which I think is the right thing to do. But sometimes there are times when even I don't know myself where things are at, and you can't make a judgment on things where we are now when we're working within the confines of the business centre, and then we don't know how things are going to be when we do move to Witsend. It's going to change the dynamics between how we do jobs. And even at Witsend, when we first move in, we'll be working with our office layout in one way, and that's not going to be the way that it's going to be in the short to even in the medium term. So yeah, there are lots of questions on that. So again, I think I was glad that we'd had the time to sit down and chat that through. So Friday was an interesting day, one of for Wend and Dan and Kat and Rich. They all left early to go to a leaving do of one of the contacts that we have on the local marketing kind of thing, and she'd left a position. So we had there was a few drinks that were had locally in town with them, and then the network of people who we also know, and slightly a wider network. So Wend was had a bit of time chatting to somebody, interestingly, who used to work as a planner for the council, so that was good. To know that person, he's a very nice and friendly chap and seems quite open to be able to give advice based on his understanding of planning laws and what have you. So, even something that you could go, okay, well, it's just going out with a drink, it's then meeting, you never know the people you're going to meet, which could lead to making contact with somebody and having a relationship with somebody who could give you advice further down the line. So that's worked out really good. Picked Wend up a little bit later. Definitely, probably a good job she didn't stay out with clients, because I think they were going out for a further meal, whereas when came back, we had chippy tea, which was nice. And it was just a good way to end the evening. On the Friday, we also finished doing some more work on the Signs website, where we'd done a landing page specifically for schools in terms of wall graphics and what have you. So that's more of a just basically further application of learnings that we have. So just because we run these ads on LinkedIn and we target the right audience and what have you, and then we have a click through. So rather than going as a click through to just the website and a general page that is about wall graphics, now we've got a much deeper and more detailed page for them to go on that kind of backs up and captures them for a longer period of time on the website, and hopefully gives them the confidence that they need to see to go on and place an order. I mean, things that seem to be working all right now on the waterfront. We had another order from another school who wants to order labelless or bottles of water without labels. We could do with a bit of help possibly from the weather. If the weather gets a lot warmer, as can do in May, in the April-May kind of thing, then if it gets hotter in the exam things, I think that's going to increase the demand for water. It always does for us. And of course then the interesting thing is when you're looking at kind of signage and what have you, if you get an order for water, then obviously there's the amount of revenue or the amount of profit that delivers is potentially a lot less than what it would be if it's a school. And all these businesses that come through, be it on water, be it on signage and what have you, they can then go on to becoming accounts. So it's not just like a one-off purchase that maybe you might buy a t-shirt or whatever, a pair of shoes from somebody else online. With us, when you're doing that, it's more of like a relationship that you're getting into. So if you come and buy wall graphics, then you might enjoy working with us and then decide that you want either further wall graphics or maybe some signage or maybe this or maybe that. And there's always that possibility that it might grow and transition into more work. So it's a higher value for anything to do with signs. It's just a much potentially higher value version of conversion for us as a client. So that's something now. We just really, all the building blocks are in place. It's just a question of getting lucky. Somebody wanting what we have for sale, and just having really the patience and not giving up on it, and just keep it in there until we get. You only need one or maybe two orders to make it worthwhile, I would say. So that's what we're going to do. Saturday was an interesting, slightly different day for me. Something what I don't know whether I can say being looking forward to is not the right word, but it was a stag do with Vonnie, who works for us. She's getting married in May, and I obviously know Vonnie really well, completely love Vonnie like almost like a family member, you could say. So it's kind of that, and going out with her husband to be, and then his best mate I know. So we went out the idea was to meet near the train station in Hertford, Greenbank train station, and then go into Chester on what was supposed to be a pub crawl down the canal was my understanding of it, even though we actually only got to Chester, went in the pub opposite. Then we did go to the pub down canal and then another further pub, and then like worked our way back. So it wasn't necessarily what I had in mind for a pub crawl, but some people wanted to get home for 8, so we probably started off about maybe 1 o'clock, and then we were back in Northwich for 8 o'clock. But we went back to the Green Dragon, which is the pub that's I'm familiar with anyway. It's quite an earthy pub, shall we say, quite good value for money. Good thing was we had some nice weather as well for walking around Chester and what have you. I'd taken the decision, the guys who were drinking with, the majority of them are like bitter drinkers, so they're drinking pints of maybe a beer, and I don't know, it feels like you want to try and do the same thing, but I know I just can't drink pints because it just leaves me like just completely wiped out by literally the volume of it. So I would drink bottles of beer, and if you're going to do that, a lot of the time I'll look for a Beck's or something along those lines, because it's 275ml, which is roughly about half a pint. Yes, it's stronger alcohol because it's a lager, so it's 5%, so it's similar amount of alcohol that you're actually consuming, but in terms of it, it's less volume, so it's easy for me to try and keep up with them. So for every pint that they're drinking, I'm drinking a half pint. So we got back to the Green Dragon, like I say, for about 8 o'clock. Some of the people went home, which was the son-in-laws, and I was glad to see I was able to watch Liverpool they had Liverpool being played on the screen, so I was able to watch them in the next to last match of the season against Newcastle, which they won in a really tight and well fought game. They got a goal in like the last 10 minutes of the game, which they've got more goals from set pieces and more goals in the last in the last quarter of the game than any other team, so they won 3-2, which is great. Now puts it back down to the final game of the season, although Man City have got a game to play today to bring them equal, and then it will go down to the last game of the season. Forgot to mention about Liverpool are also in the Champions League, played against Barcelona away and got beaten 3-0, which on the face of it sounds really bad, but they actually played probably better than Barcelona on the day. But they've got to go back next week, and I would say it looks like they're going to need an awful lot of luck. Every shot on goal that they have is going to have to go in, I think, for them to have any chance, because if Barcelona score just one goal at home to Anfield, then Liverpool have got to score 5, and then you're going, okay, well, can Liverpool win, can score 5 goals against Barcelona at home? And that appears to be a tall ask, I would say. I think anybody would say, even the most ardent Liverpool fan would say. So anyway, going back to the Saturday, I decided to walk back from the Green Dragon, which is probably about a good 10-15 minute walk to our house. Got some chips on the way, chips and mayo was nice. And I think when I got back to, because the thing about an all day session, if you're drinking like sort of like half pints or bottles and what have you, and it does tend to spread it out a bit, so it's more of just a war of attrition. So you got like the taxi drive back, which is about an hour, and then got back into, watched the football at the Green Dragon, had a couple more cokes, didn't have any more alcohol to drink. So by the time I got home, which was probably before 11 o'clock, something along those lines, I pretty much sobered up by that point, which was good. Watched Game of Thrones with Brody and Mac, and spent a bit of time with Sherry and Mick, who'd been looking after the boys. And then when came home, probably about, 11:30, 12 o'clock, I think, maybe something along those lines, probably about 12 o'clock. But the Sunday morning, early in the Sunday morning, I think all the chips and the booze and the alcohol, that left me completely wiped out. I'd woke with really bad stomach pains and stomach cramps, so I was quite poorly in the early hours of the morning. I was on the loo for quite a while, without going into graphic details, probably about half an hour to 3/4 of an hour of a lot of pain. But eventually I felt better after that. Slept a little bit, then down on the couch, stopped the dogs barking away. Sunday, as ever, after I've had any kind of drinking session or anything like that, main problem is just literally lack of drive and motivation and what have you. Just couldn't be, didn't feel in the mood to get anything done. Watched the Anfield wrap, watched the post-match pint, watched the post-match press conference from Newcastle, read the internet, didn't really do very much that day. Clean the house, because we had to do, Joe cleans for us on a weekly basis, is now pretty much, she's got one more clean to do. So when did I and the kids sat down, decided how we were going to divvy up the cleaning tasks amongst us. Best thing to clean is for people to clean the things that they either enjoy cleaning or want to clean. So I don't mind cleaning toilets and showers and what have you. So spent about an hour doing those, and I actually, although I don't like doing it, I actually like the results of knowing that things are like really clean and clean to the standards and the level of cleanliness that I'd be happy with, which is, it's got to look like mint clean, not just like a surface wipe over, but it's got to be literally clean to the point where I'm cleaning things with a toothbrush, that kind of cleaning that is completely unrealistic to expect somebody to do on a commercial basis. So yeah, spent a lot of time doing that. Went out for a walk, the usual river walk with my mum and dad, and then came back. The boys we'd agreed for them that part of their thing to do is to clean the rooms, and with the incentive of having the internet cut off until things were that the rooms were clean to an acceptable level. They also towed the line, which was good. So that worked. They did a bit of work then after I had some kind of sit down and had something to eat, and I did do some work. I spent about an hour and a half watching videos on TikTok. It just is such a rabbit hole of viewing. Just start watching, and then you watch another one and another one and another one. And I can't believe I actually watched it for about an hour and a half. Did a bit of a document and what have you, and feel in a better place mentally. Watched Game of Thrones again, sat down and watched Game of Thrones with the guys. Was quite tired because I've been up early from being poorly in the night. So I did actually fall asleep watching Game of Thrones. It's not ideal. Watched the last episode of Josh's travel series, which is covering his trips around Australia, and he'd spent I think they were virtually trapped in a van for 4 days with the 3 of them in a van. It's quite a small camper van, one of these ones where you actually sleep in like an extended roof line. And wow, I mean, they were seeing Australia, and it looks amazing when the weather's great, but yeah, I think they've done it in the rainy season, which of course, as the name suggests, you're going to get a lot of rain. But being trapped in a van playing Uno and Monopoly for 4 days, oh god, that I do wonder how. I don't think it's something that I probably would be able to cope with. I definitely need a bigger van, I think, if we ever decide to do anything ourselves in that way. But again, because Wendy's frightened of snakes again. I'm not sure whether going for a road trip round Australia would be the right thing to do. Maybe touring round Europe, maybe something I might do one day potentially. Maybe yes, maybe no. But anyway, so watch that, and yeah, here we are. Bank holiday Monday today, actually, not even working, so that's why things are a little bit later. So yeah, I've got a good day. Almost like I'm just going to treat it like just a normal working day today. Plenty of stuff to do. So yeah, till next week. Thank you for listening.